Hello everyone, my name is Lauren. I was asked to talk a bit about my experience with ITP. But honestly, where do I even start with this? I've had this condition for 15 years. I could talk about it for hours. It's just been a series of unfortunate events, to be honest. I was diagnosed when I was 6. I got chicken pox and I just got really ill from it. I remember at one point my body was just covered in petechiae, but we didn't know what it was. So obviously my parents were freaking out. They took me to the GP and they were like, you need to go to the hospital right now. So I was whisked away to Harrogate Hospital, and yeah, that was just the start of it really. I was diagnosed with ITP and it just all went from there. I mainly remember, I have a distinct memory of being in primary school and everyone was just terrified of me getting hurt. I wasn't allowed to go outside at playtime and I had to sit in the classroom on my own because they didn't want me falling over or hurting myself on the playground. It's just so sad. But that's my earliest association with ITP. I find it quite funny now, but obviously at the time I just didn't know what was going on. For a child, that was it was just such a strange experience to go through, and I kind of felt like I was being punished. All I knew was that I bruised easily, but that was as far as my knowledge went. So I guess my earliest experience with ITP was that it's just very isolating. As a child I was never treated for my ITP, it was just regular blood tests and hospital appointments. And growing up, especially into my teenage years, in high school, it just became something I could completely forget about. I just didn't even think about it. I think I had a blood test every 6 months or something, but it just really wasn't an issue. I really regret taking this for granted. I should have realised how lucky I was, especially considering where I'm at now with it. But yeah, obviously I had to be careful, and I couldn't join in the PE lessons where we were doing contact rugby, but that didn't really bother me too much. But it wasn't until 2 years ago, so 2019, and I was a month away from finishing my first year of university, and it just all just kicked off again. I went to a gig with my friends and I came out just absolutely black and blue. From the neck down, I was just covered in petechiae. I looked like I'd been in a fight or something. If I can work out how to, I'll put some photos up. But yeah, I can just remember thinking oh God, here we go again, it's back. So yeah, that was my first sort of experience back into it, I suppose. I took myself to hospital, to A&E. I had 12 platelets and it was sort of downhill from there. I do see this as my personal start with ITP because it was the first time I had to deal with it on my own, and it was the first time I was having treatment with it, so it all felt very overwhelming suddenly just to be plunged into all of this. So the first treatments that I was ever given was IVIG, and I was also put on steroids, the prednisolone at first, which was just a horrible experience. So the first hospital that I was admitted to was Northwick Park Hospital in London, which was literally just next to my university. I'm not sure if I should call them out really, but well, I just have. But it was literally the most miserable time of my life. It was just horrible. Just really not the way that you want to finish your first year of university, really. I was put on about 17 milligrams of steroids, but I just got all the side effects of them, insomnia. I remember going days without sleeping. I physically couldn't do my degree. I couldn't do my work because I was just out of it. I was putting on weight. I still can't bring myself to look at photos of myself from 2019. I had such a moon face. It was just horrible. That whole experience is just not really a time of my life that I want to remember. I remember I was then transferred to a different hospital, but because I was on such a high dose of steroids, it took me about 5 months to wean myself off them. So it was basically 5 months of all these side effects with no real gain from it. Like, my ITP wasn't getting any better. And I mean, still now, just the suggestion of steroids it's terrifying. Treatment-wise, I think I've been on almost all of them. We're getting there. I've been on IVIG, steroids, rituximab, and eltrombopag. I think that's it for now. But none of them so far have worked like amazingly well for me. I'm currently on eltrombopag, 50 milligrams every day, just because this is the one that's worked the most for me. It did at one point get my platelets up to 176, but it didn't last very long. So we're just kind of vibing with this one, just to keep things steady. I did try the rituximab at one point because it had apparently been very successful and had worked for a lot of other people. So basically last summer I had a really bad fall at work. I sound like a grandma, don't I? Oh, I had a bad fall. I ended up in A&E. I hit my head on a wooden floor and I just like obliterated any trace of platelets in my body. It was just the worst state I've been in, like the worst bruises I've ever had. Like, again, if I can, I'll put some photos up. It literally looked like I had like beetroots growing on me. It was horrible. It was just so bad. But yeah, after this I had about 10 platelets, I think. So they gave me some rounds of IVIG and then decided to try me on rituximab just as an alternative treatment. But yeah, basically it's been 9 months since that and just no result from it. So yeah, after that didn't work, they decided to do a bit more like investigating, and I had a bone marrow biopsy, which was just the worst, horrible, just no thank you, never again. Yeah, that's, so yeah, my experience with most treatments so far like haven't been very positive, I suppose. And I think that's kind of like what I find hardest about having ITP. It's having all these treatments and going into it like so positive and so hopeful that it's going to work, and then it just not, or it'll raise your platelets like a little bit, and I become so hopeful that like finally I've found something that works for me, and then a week later they're at rock bottom again. I think as well I find this like a really hard thing to deal with because I'm a uni student. I'm 21 and I'm at that time in my life where like I'm meant to be getting stuck into my degree and like having fun with my mates. Like, my degree is challenging and like incredibly stressful as it is. I do fashion design at the University of Westminster, and then having this illness on the side that's like constantly at the back of your mind, like controlling the things that you do, and you constantly have to like take it into consideration, it just makes things like 10 times harder. Like, working towards deadlines is already difficult, but working towards deadlines when you have a platelet count of 10 is even harder. So I think, you know, I often do find myself going through the motions of like, this isn't fair, like, why is this something that I have to deal with? Like, it's been 15 years, like, why is this still a thing? So yeah, I mean, that was part of the reason why I started my blog, the Platelet Diaries, though, because as I mentioned earlier, like, ITP has been like a really isolating and lonely thing, especially because it's quite unheard of, and I've never met in person anybody else with ITP. It's just not a thing. So yeah, I just wanted to create a space where I could like spread a bit of awareness, put my experiences out there, and sort of in an attempt to like create something positive out of all these pretty rubbish experiences that I've been through. So I've been doing that for about, I think, 9 months now. I started like last July, and it's like helped me so much. Just the fact that people reach out to me all the time on like Instagram and email and all sorts and say that like I found your blog, like I relate to your experience, like it definitely makes you feel like less alone in all of this. I've met quite a lot of young people through my blog, which has been like really comforting to know that other people have been through the same things. I'd love to meet more young people with ITP and hear about their experience with dealing with the condition alongside like university and like their degrees, because personally mine hasn't been so positive. Mostly it's just that my university don't really understand a condition, and when you say that you have a chronic illness, they tend to just sort of lump everyone together and kind of treat it as if like all illnesses are the same, when that's not the case. Like everybody has completely different needs. If I'm a bit behind on work or I need extra time to like finish something, it's kind of looked down upon, when it's not really understood that I need the extra time because, you know, I spend a lot of time at like hospital appointments, and after appointment, you know, when you've been told that you don't really have many platelets left, I'm not very enthusiastic to just like run home and churn out loads of work. I think I just like the recognition that like I will do my work, and I do still strive to like do my degree and do really well, but it might just take me a little bit longer. So yeah, I mean, positive, I suppose. But yeah, I'm really hopeful that in the future, like there will be more understanding of ITP, and that young people to follow that are like diagnosed won't have to feel so isolated by it, because there is like such a big community of people out there that are like so supportive about it. So yeah, thank you very much for listening and letting me share all this chaotic experience with you all. Thank you.